What will be in that package? What's the first shipment that goes out?
Well, I don't know specifically what the first shipment would be, Joe, but obviously they need ammunition badly. They're outgunned 10 to 1 in all weapons categories. And so they need missiles. They need regular ammunition for their rifles. They need, of course, then air defense. So any kind of weapon, any kind of ammunition we have that goes into the air defense systems, like the Patriot batteries, they need that badly. They frankly need more Patriot batteries also, as you just mentioned. Or actually the NATO Secretary General mentioned, the Ukrainian cities are being bombarded and they don't have air defenses. So people are dying. So it's really the ammunition and the ammunition for offensive or shooting back, if you will, and for the missiles. But then they also need to defend the citizens.
Well, Evelyn, we heard from the director of the CIA, Bill Burns, today, who had a pretty stark warning. On the one hand, he said if the aid package does not make it for Congress, he warned that there is a very real risk that the Ukrainians could lose on the battlefield by the end of this year. He said that if the assistance comes through, both practically and psychologically, Ukrainians are entirely capable of holding their own through 2024. But is this war likely to end when this year ends, or are we going to be having the exact same conversation in 2025 and potentially beyond? Are we just helping Ukraine stay where they are versus making actual advances that could bring us toward the end of this conflict?
Yeah, Kailey, I think you're asking the most important question because, first of all, we have to provide this assistance. If we don't, then whether it's the end of the year or the end of the summer, at some point the Russians are going to use the advantage they have in manpower and in guns and ammunition, and they are going to take more territory. And all of that will impact Ukrainian morale. It will also mean that they have to dig in and defend themselves with less weaponry. So it's critical for the Ukrainians to have access to ongoing weapons. But as your question indicates, the kind of weapons they get, the number of the weapons, and then the restrictions we place on them for using those weapons are really where the rubber meets the road. The Ukrainians need to be able to get longer range missiles, the ATACMS missiles that can take out the Kerch Bridge and other strategic military targets that will weaken the Russians' ability to keep flowing the ammunition for the guns and the oil for the tanks. And if they can really strategically have access to weapons that provide them with the ability to cripple the Russian logistics chain, then they really have a chance to cripple the Russian advance, because we think there is an offensive coming soon.
Evelyn, I want to ask you about the conversations that we're hearing on the House floor. This, of course, has been a tortured debate for months and months, and there are a lot of members of the Republican conference who don't think we should be sending more money. There's not another dollar crowd that you're all too familiar with. And there have been some concern among the leadership that there's some misinformation that's been creeping into the debate. And I'll point you to an interview that Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman who has invoked this motion to vacate, held with Steve Bannon, in which she called the Ukrainian conflict a war on Christianity. She said the Ukrainian government is attacking Christians, executing priests. Russia is not doing that. As a matter of fact, they seem to be protecting Christianity. Are you worried about Russian misinformation bleeding into the debate here in Washington? Is that already happening?
Well, that's false. I don't know where it came from, Joe, but clearly it's actually the other way around. In Russia, if you are a Jehovah's Witness, a Mormon, some kind of evangelical, not a Russian Orthodox person, you will actually be treated as if you are part of a cult, and a dangerous cult, as if you're almost a terrorist. The Russians do not have freedom of religion in the Russian state. Yes, they tolerate some, obviously, Islam and some other religion that they consider indigenous, if you will, to Russia. But they are not tolerant of other religions. And I mean, all you have to do is ask those churches. And And as for the Ukrainians, they're very tolerant. They have their own Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have Christians in Ukraine who live, Catholics rather, sorry, the Orthodox are Christians. Then there are the Catholics who live mostly in the western parts. I'm ethnic Hungarian. Many of those people are Catholic. They're ethnic Hungarians in Ukraine. There are Jews living there. The president and the prime minister are Jewish. So it's a very tolerant country, actually, as far as religion is concerned. And it's not, the same cannot be said of Russia.
All right. Well, we appreciate the fact check, Evelyn. And of course, we could ask you much more about the conflict in Ukraine, but there also is a live conflict in the Middle East we'd like to get your take on as well. We spoke earlier today with the former commander of the U.S. Central Command, General Ken McKenzie, about Iran's attack and the position he thinks the country is in now as we consider Israel's potential response. Just take a listen to what the general said.
Iran felt they were in a corner. They were on the wrong side of this equation. And so what they try to do is take a page out of the Russian playbook, what we call escalate to de-escalate. Do something profoundly aggressive that makes your opponents rock back on their heels and realize that maybe the game is getting too rich for them. Here's the problem, though. Russia uses this because Russia has vast resources, including nuclear capabilities. Iran tried it, but their attempt was found to be hollow. It was unsuccessful. So Iran is in a markedly weaker strategic position today than they were last week.
Evelyn, I'm not sure if you agree with that characterization that we're talking about potentially a weakened Iran here. But if that is the case, if the enemy is weaker, what should Israel's response be calibrated to as it considers what to do here?
Yeah, I find General McKenzie's comments really interesting. He was a colleague of mine, and he makes an important point. What he's saying there is that Iran showed the world, demonstrated that it's actually militarily weaker than it even realized it was, right? Presumably they didn't launch all those ballistic and cruise missiles and drones at Israel to have them all get intercepted. And so, and that was a lot of weaponry. I've seen him quoted elsewhere saying they may have kind of blown their wad, if you will. They don't have much in reserve. So this big dramatic strike actually sets them back in terms of what they have. Politically, though, I don't know, whether they look as weak as they do militarily when you look at the array of weaponry, because they did demonstrate that they're willing to take risk. And frankly, they crossed a red line. So the Israeli response, if it remains muted, I think is probably wise. But on the other hand, the world should be doing more to deter Iran from crossing that red line a second time, if you will.